Look at that. You've made it so far. You're now about to learn how to answer the flowchart's question type. So in the flowchart question type, what you have is one question or statement followed by the next, which is then followed by the next, and so on. And basically what you have to do is you have to complete this sequence of information. For example, right here, we seem to have a question that is describing the life of Freya Stark. It tells us when she was born, then what happened in her life next, and then what happened after that, and so on. So here, we basically have a sequence of information, and in this case, we have a chronology. It's telling us what happened in someone's life, event after event. But this could also be a process. This flowchart could be describing a process of some sort. That is also possible. So the way to identify these questions is very simple. The first thing you will notice is that here it says complete the flowchart below, and then over here you can see that you basically have a sequence of things happening one after the other. Now this question is pretty simple. It's easy to answer, as you can see here by the green dot, and this question, it goes mostly in order. So now let me give you further explanation about this question type. So just to reiterate my previous point, these questions go mostly in order, and whenever you have a question that goes mostly in order, you have to assume that it goes always in order. Okay, just assume that, because 80 to 90% of the times it will go in order. And as mentioned before, these questions are pretty easy to do. As with the rest of the questions that you've seen so far, this question is also formed from only 1 to 2 sentences in the reading passage. Now the correct answer, just like in the fill-in-the-blank questions, the correct answer is going to connect to the words that come before the blank line and or after the blank line. So always pay attention to these connecting words, because they are going to tell you whether the answer that you have picked actually fits in the sentence or not. So in that sense, these questions are similar to fill-in-the-blank questions. They're also similar to diagram questions, because in diagram questions, you pretty much have the same thing. You're going to have blank lines and you have to fill them out by looking at the keywords and by looking at the connecting words. As mentioned before, the flowchart question can describe a process or a sequence of events. Finally, you have to be able to scan the passage and understand synonym language. This is, after all, an English test, so the ability to scan the passage and locate the keywords and also the synonym words for those keywords is a very important skill to have. Now let me talk about the two different types of directions that you might see when it comes to this question type. So here is type number 1. In type 1, you may be asked to complete the flowchart using words from the box. So right here you have the box, and in the box you have a bunch of answer choices. Now, what you have to do is simply pick the answer choice and match it to the correct question. Sometimes it might happen that you have more answer choices than the questions, in which case one of the answer choices will not be used. If, on the other hand, you have less answer choices and more questions, then that means that one or two of these answer choices are going to be used twice. Now here is type number 2. In type number 2, you have to write out your answer in the text format. It tells you right here how many words you can write. In this case, you cannot write any more than one word. No more than one word. And over here in the blank line, you have to write that answer. So that answer goes into the blank line, which you're going to fill in into your answer sheet. So very similar to fill in the blank questions as you've seen before. Now here is the basic strategy. I'm not going to go over this basic strategy step by step because you already know this by now. The first thing you have to do is mark the keywords, then identify the easy questions, then look for the keywords for the easy questions in the reading passage. You have to scan for these keywords and also scan for synonym language. Once you have located the matching sentence and once you think that you have found your answer, then you have to double check with the question and make sure that your answer connects to the connecting words. The answer has to fit into the blank line. Finally, once you have answered the question, then just put the number of the question next to the area where you found the answer in the reading passage. This way, it will be easier for you to locate the rest of the answers. Now let me show you some examples of how to answer this type of question. So for this example, we're going to be looking at this question right here. So here we only have two questions, number 1 and number 2. And here we have a sentence which is related to our question set, but it is not a question in and of itself. But it has useful keywords which can help us to identify the matching paragraph. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to read the directions up here. It's very important to know how many words your answer needs to be. So right here it tells us that our answer needs to be no more than 3 words. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start marking our keywords. Now it's very useful to mark the keywords in the title, because the title can tell you where the matching paragraph is in the reading passage. For example, we know that this entire question set is going to be talking about the production process. So once I find this keyword in my reading passage, there is a good chance that I'm going to find the answers for my questions within that same paragraph. But you do have to be careful though, because sometimes what can happen is that the keywords that you find might be a repetitive keyword or a useless keyword. Because remember, anytime you have a keyword that appears again and again throughout the reading passage, is going to be repetitive and therefore useless. So you have to make sure that the keyword in the title is not a repetitive keyword. Only then can it be really helpful. Now, once you have marked the keywords in the title, you can then move on to marking the keywords in the rest of these sentences. So let's go ahead and do that now. Here in this sentence, I have the keywords editorial headquarters and journalists. Now you will notice that right here we have a keyword newspaper. The reason why I have not marked this keyword is because this is a repetitive keyword. The whole article is going to be about newspaper, so this keyword is going to appear again and again throughout the reading article, and it's not really going to help me very much to locate this matching sentence. So I haven't marked this and I'm going to skip over this keyword. Let's move on to question number 1 and let's mark some keywords here. Here I have final version and printing center. And then for number 2, I have pages and something about pages being converted into something else. So these are my keywords in this question set, and what I have to do after marking these keywords in the questions is I have to figure out which keywords are going to be the easiest for me to locate and then start with that. So in this case, I think that question number 1 is going to be the easiest one out of these two. I think that question number 1 has better keywords than number 2. So I'm going to start off with that. I'm going to start off with number 1, and so I'm going to put a check mark next to it. Finally, I also want to pay careful attention to these connecting words, these words that are boxed in the red color. These are words that go right before and right after the blank line. These words are going to tell you whether the answer that you have chosen for the blank line actually fits in the sentence or not. So use these connecting words to figure out whether you have chosen the correct answer or not. Great, so that's all for our description over here. Now let us go ahead and start to answer these questions. So I'm going to start off by answering question number 1 first. Now before I can do this, before I go about looking for these keywords in question number 1, what I would be doing is first I would actually try to locate these keywords from the title so that I can locate the matching paragraph. If these keywords are repetitive, then I would just skip over this, then I would just not look for these keywords at all, and I would just move on to finding the next best set of keywords. So in this case, I would probably be looking for editorial headquarters. That is going to be pretty simple to find as well. I mean, we don't have a question here, but this keyword can still help us to identify the matching paragraph. It can help us to refine down our area where we're going to find our answer. So these can also be useful keywords. So you could search for them in the reading passage as well to identify your matching paragraph. So once I have done that, once I have located my matching paragraph, at that point, I can start to use these keywords from the question to find out the exact answer to this question. So let's take a look at our question number 1. It says the final version of the text is dash to the printing center. Is what to the printing center? It seems to me that this is going to be some sort of a verb, an action. Maybe the final version of the text is shipped to the printing center. Maybe it is sent or mailed to the printing center. Maybe it is returned, or maybe it is sent back. So it seems to me that this is going to be some sort of a verb. So now let's check our matching paragraph. We're going to now start scanning for these keywords. So here we go. Well, right away I see it says finished newspaper. So finished newspaper is synonym language for final version. Let's see what else. I'm also looking for printing center. Here I see printing center. Here I see printing center again. Here it mentions something about versions, but I don't care about any version. I care about the final version. But I don't care about just any version. I care about the final version. All right. And then it tells us what happens to the pages over here. So here's how we're going to do this. After locating the matching paragraph, you're going to mark the keywords from the question. Then go ahead and also mark any synonym language that you see. For example, finished newspaper is synonym language for final version. The word pages can be synonym language for text. Okay? So I'm pretty sure that since I have found my keywords around here and also my synonym language around here, there is a very, very high probability that I'm going to find my answer somewhere around here. So this is very likely going to be our matching sentence. So now what I have to do is I have to read this matching sentence. So here we go. Once the finished newspaper has been created for the next morning's edition, all the pages are transmitted electronically from the pre-press center to the printing center. All right, remember guys, we're looking for some sort of a verb. Something happens to the final version of the text. What happens? Well, it tells us that right here. The pages are transmitted electronically. Transmitted electronically. That is what happens to the final version of the text. They are transmitted electronically to the printing center. So that is going to be our answer. We're going to fill that into our answer sheet. And once you have filled out that answer, just put the question number next to the matching sentence where you found your answer. So now that I know I found my answer to question number 1 over here, there is a very high probability that I'm going to find the answer to question number 2 after this line. Why? Because these questions, they mostly go in order. So let us now move on to question number 2. This question says the pages are converted into what? It's going to be a noun. They're converted into something, but I don't know what that something is. So it's going to be a noun, and I have to figure out what it is converted into. So here is our matching paragraph. Again, this is the same paragraph. We found the answer to question number 1 over here, and we put number 1 next to it in the previous slide. So now I'm going to be looking for the answer to number 2 after this area, after this line where we found the answer to question number 1. So let us scan for these keywords. Pages are converted into something. Here I see something about pages. Again, page over here, more pages. I'm also looking for converted into. Pages are processed into. Look at that, processed into. Well, that is synonym language for converted into. So here I have my keyword, pages. Pages also appears down here again. And over here, processed into is synonym language for converted into. So this is going to be my matching sentence. Let us read this sentence. It says, the pages are then processed into photographic negatives, and the film is used to produce aluminum printing plates ready for the presses. So what are the pages converted into? Well, they are processed into photographic negatives. So that is going to be our answer. We're going to fill that in right here. And after filling that in, just put the question number next to it so that you can locate the rest of the answers in the question set. So we are now done with this one. I hope you have a good overview of how to go about answering this question. You may have noticed that these questions are very similar, similar to fill-in-the-blank questions, diagram questions, and so on. So you pretty much have to be doing the same thing again and again, just different variations of it. In the next 2 videos, I want to take you through 2 practice questions to show you how to do these questions in much more detail. So stay tuned for that.